Is it true about Stephanie? Is a brilliant episode of Full House. There is so much value in this episode, and of course, a nice amount of comedy. This is the 14th episode of the 7th season of Full House. This is directed by Joel Zwick, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And it starts off with a very cute introduction with Becky trying to teach the boys to say "have mercy," but they just say they don't say that, which was very, very cute. And then Jessie comes home. Jessie and Becky kiss. And the boys say, "have mercy." It's very sweet. There are two parts to the narrative, one focusing on Stephanie, one focusing on Danny. I'll talk about Danny's part of the narrative first of all, and then I'll talk about Stephanie. Danny is still trying to get over the breakup with Vicky, so he is rearranging everything around the house. He's growing facial hair, and then at one point, the reveal was brilliant. Everybody's sitting on the floor. The dining table has gone. They're now sitting on the floor with a very low-down table, and it's nice to see everybody gathered around. And I have to say, it looks like they have a little bit more room. The table looks to be a little bit bigger. And Nicky and Alex are playing with chopsticks. And Becky says, "Alex, the chopsticks are not a toy." And Alex says, "But what about Joey?" And we cut to Joey making walrus impressions, which I thought was fabulous. And then they're talking about Danny's facial hair. And Steve says, "I tried to grow a mustache once." To which DJ responds, "What happened?" And with just a tiny pause, Steve said, "Nothing." The delivery of the line was brilliant. And Danny has to realise that he's struggling to come to terms with this, but everybody's there for him, and that the way he's doing it, he's distracting himself and ignoring his feelings. And they had a nice conversation with Danny, and he was able to look at things slightly differently, and I thought it worked out really well. And if anybody's in the same situation as Danny, I think it could be quite beneficial. We then come to Stephanie. And a boy called Jamie, played by Eric Lively, asks Stephanie out, but it turns out that Gia had a big crush on Jamie and wanted to go out with him. So now Gia is obviously not happy with Stephanie, even though it's not really Stephanie's fault. She goes over to the Tanner's house and is sickly sweet to Danny, calls him Tom Selleck, because of the mustache, of course, and then treats Michelle like a baby. And then tells Stephanie that she has to cancel the date. And much to Stephanie's credit, she stood her ground. She showed no fear, and she just said no. And then Gia said, "Well, it's your funeral." And the next day at school, well, Gia's told everybody that Stephanie paid Jamie $20 to go out with her. And there are a lot of jokes about this. And I really like the fact that Jamie didn't blame Stephanie. He wasn't annoyed at Stephanie. But he did call off the date. He realised that was probably for the best. And I really like the fact that he didn't just get annoyed at Stephanie, because it wasn't her fault. But Stephanie is, of course, annoyed, and now she wants to get revenge. And we get a bit of suspense, wondering what she's going to do. And she ends up getting hold of Gia's report card and blowing it up and putting it on the wall. And Gia sees it, and everybody's laughing and making fun of her. And she has her face in her locker, and when she turns around, she's clearly been crying. And honestly, I felt nothing for her. I don't like Gia. I don't like her as a character. Even when we see softer sides of her, such as that moment, I don't care. She got what she deserves. She is a nasty person. I'm not saying Stephanie should have done that. I don't condone it. But if it's happened, Gia got what she deserved, and I don't care. But Stephanie feels guilty. And I guess maybe if I made somebody feel that way, I'd feel bad about it. But because I'm just observing it, and we know Gia is a horrible person, I don't feel bad for her at all. But Stephanie does feel bad, and they go down to the club, and Jamie's Human Pudding Band is going to be playing there, and Gia comes in on her own. And Stephanie still feels bad, and she has a talk with Jessie, and Jessie says something that I think is probably the strongest takeaway from the full episode. And that's, it doesn't matter what others think of you, what matters is what you think of yourself. And I think that is so important for multiple reasons. Because one, if somebody says something horrible to you, but you're not bothered, that's what's the most important. Don't let it bother you if you don't care about it. If somebody makes fun of your outfit, as long as you feel good about it, that's fine. If somebody makes fun of the way you do something, if it doesn't bother you, that shouldn't be an issue. But what is important here, and as Stephanie pointed out, in that moment, she didn't feel very good about herself, not because of the way Gia made her feel, but because of the way her own actions made her feel, which I thought was also really important. It's not just about feeling good about yourself even if others don't care. It's also about recognizing that if you feel bad about something you've done, maybe you need to rectify it. And Stephanie does, and she goes to talk with Gia, and Gia's her usual nasty self, and I would have walked away, but Stephanie stuck with it, and they had what ultimately ended up being a pleasant conversation. And it just goes to show how nasty Gia is, because when she took a matter of 3 minutes to talk with Stephanie, she realised that maybe she wasn't so bad after all. I think she called her a dweeb, but nevertheless, she realised that Stephanie wasn't that bad, and really the only reason she disliked her is because she didn't want to smoke several episodes ago. So Gia is not a good person. I don't care when we see the softer side of her. Yes, it makes her seem more realistic as a character, because most people have multiple sides to them, but I still don't like her. I never liked her, and I doubt I ever will. But the end of the episode, friendly, which I guess is a good thing. I can't really complain about that, and I do think Stephanie ultimately did the right thing. And while I don't agree with her blowing up the report card, because that's a private confidential document, well, technically, I suppose people can show it around to other people if they want it, but it's private unless somebody gave her permission to look at it, which obviously is not the case. But at the same time, Gia needed to learn that the way she treats other people is not nice, and she got what she deserved. So I don't like her, but I do like the episode. I think it has a tremendous amount to offer. I think there are a lot of funny moments, but I think there are a lot of really meaningful messages in this, and Stephanie was ultimately really brilliant. And she even stopped Gia from drinking the Gibbler special, which to be fair, I would have done the same, because that's disgusting. Is It True About Stephanie is ultimately a really fabulous episode of Full House.